Right, back into Judge Adams' courtroom. We continue the trial of Andrea Sneiderman across the platforms of 11 Alive.
You may be seated in the seat, and if you need additional notepads or pencils, just let us know. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself comfortable. Thank you very much for your patience. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself comfortable. All right, lawyers and parties, you may be seated. Mr. Petrie, you may continue.
Your Honor, I have nothing further this time.
All right. Is there any redirect?
Very briefly, Your
All
Honor.
right. Ask as many questions as you wish.
Thank you. Agent Fitzgerald, I asked you on direct examination, and I think Mr. Petrie touched on it, the 10:06 call from Andrea Sneiderman's cell phone to Hemi Newman's cell phone. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity now, can we see State's Exhibit number 92? In State's Exhibit number 92, when it appears, would you just reference that for the jurors so that everybody knows what we're talking about?
Yes.
Do you see it there in front of you?
Yes, so it's going to be a call from the Andrea Sneiderman cell phone to the Hemi Newman cell phone.
Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
Have you had an opportunity to review the cell phone mapping location as it relates to this 10:06 call?
Yes, I just took the latitude and longitude and put it in my phone to determine, where the tower is located.
And that latitude and longitude, that's the information that the AT&T cell phone records provide?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Can I see State's Exhibit number 87, please? And Your Honor, may I approach to move that?
You may. Yes, ma'am.
Agent Fitzgerald, the State's Exhibit number 87, does that depict the cell phone tower that was used by Andrea Sneiderman's cell phone when she made that 10:06 call to Hemi Newman's cell phone?
Yeah, so putting it in my phone, it came up with the area being this tower that's marked right there, and I believe the orientation to be to the north, based on the records.
What, if anything, can you tell us about the location of Andrea Sneiderman's cell phone when it made that call at 10:06 as it relates to the Chambly-Dunwoody Road address that you've identified as the Dunwoody Daycare, Dunwoody Pratt Daycare?
I believe that tower that's utilized at 10:06 provides service to that address.
If Andrea Sneiderman, let me ask you this, I'm sorry. Is the review of the cell phone records consistent with the defendant being actually at the Dunwoody Prep Daycare when she made that call to Hemi Newman at 10:06?
Yes, it'd be consistent with that, yes.
Thank you. You can take that down, thank you. Mr. Petrie asked you a series of questions about data usage versus cell phone tower for data usage versus cell phone tower information for calls and texts being made. Can you explain to the jury, is there one area or one information that is more reliable than another?
Yes, we've been doing this for many years, our unit, and we have found within our unit and discussed it with AT&T, and they agree with the people that we've talked to that there is an issue with the data sessions that they're providing. They're not sure what the issue is, if it's a translation error coming out of the switch, if it's a timestamp error coming out of the switch, or just something's just totally off, because we've seen too many anomalies that just can't happen with the data sessions, and we've never seen that with the calls and texts, the voice and text.
Do you feel comfortable relying on the mapping information for the data usage, as Mr. Petrie was asking about?
No, we've thrown it. Every case that I'm involved in, and our unit is fairly consistent with not using that, especially in any kind of court proceeding. Very rarely we might use it in a child abduction matter just to see if we can get any lead generated out of it, but knowing that it's not, we're not going to depend on it.
What concerns, if any, do you have about the reliability of the mapping for the cell phone calls or the text messages?
Can you say that again?
Yeah, what, if any, concerns do you have about the reliability of those records?
The reliability of the voice and text we find to be very reliable. The reliability of data with AT&T, the data sessions, is inaccurate, so we don't use them.
All right, thank you. Mr. Petrie asked you a question about the Longmont, Colorado information that we had talked about earlier, and I think the phrasing of the question was you placing the defendant and Hemi Newman 45 minutes apart. Is any of the information, either in your testimony or otherwise that you reviewed, placing the two 45 minutes apart?
The two calls were roughly 40 minutes apart, not necessarily the two defendants.
I see.
Or the defendant and the Hemi Newman phone.
I see. Is any of the information you reviewed about Longmont, Colorado, the defendant's phone being in use there and Hemi Newman's phone being in use there, is anything about that information inconsistent with the theory that the two were there together and shared a room together?
I didn't see anything inconsistent with it.
Okay. And finally, Special Agent Fitzgerald, can I see exhibit number 92 again, please? I asked you to review, or you did review, the calls outgoing and incoming for Andrea Sneiderman's cell phone on the day of the murder, November 18, 2010. Is that right?
That's correct.
And the relevant calls that we talked about are depicted here on State's exhibit number 92. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Were there any calls that you reviewed between Andrea Sneiderman's phone and Rusty Sneiderman's cell phone?
I didn't see that she called, she reached out to the Rusty Sneiderman cell phone at all that day.
What about Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
Are you certain that there is no cell phone call from Andrea Sneiderman to Rusty Sneiderman after receiving the call from Dunwoody Prep at 9:26 a.m.? 9:25 a.m.?
Yes, I don't remember seeing any calls to the Rusty Sneiderman phone after that time.
Thank you, Agent Fitzgerald. I appreciate it. No further questions.
Mr. Petrie, any recalls?
Very briefly.
Yes, sir, you may. Ask as many questions as you wish. Gesundheit.
May I approach?
Yes, I was just saying Gesundheit is one sneeze.
I know, but I forgot to ask if I could approach.
If you need any Kleenex, would you assist me? Somebody give me. Yeah, I have a box over there already.
Mr. Fitzgerald, I'm going to ask you to look with me, if you will, again at State's Exhibit number 68, again, the cell location mobility usage records from AT&T Mobility for Andrea Sneiderman's cell phone. I'm going to ask you, you just mentioned the 1006 call. Can you find that on here for us?
Yes.
And that is item number what, sir?
2800.
Okay. Do you also see a call at 9:58?
Yes.
What item number is that?
The 2799.
Okay, so they're one right after the other.
That's correct.
And in chronological order.
Correct, yes.
Can you tell us on the call 2800, what cell tower location information appears?
The 1006 call is going to be tower 40267.
Okay. And what about the 958 call?
Tower 4261.
Okay. Did you plot that tower?
It's the same structure. It's just most likely two different technologies or two different frequencies, same sector to the north.
Okay. Now, can you tell from those records whether or not at 9:58 and 10:06, can you tell from the records provided whether or not at that time that cell phone was moving?
It doesn't appear to be. All we have is the initial tower that was utilized. There's no terminating tower, so I don't know. According to these records, it does not appear to be moving. I mean, of course, within that, it's all within that same sector coverage.
Okay. And is that true for both of the calls, the 958 call and the 1006 call?
That's correct. They're both utilizing the same, pointing to the north of that tower.
Okay. And to the north of both of those, both calls being pointed to the north of that tower, that's both in the general direction of Dunwoody Prep, according to the information you were given.
Right. I'd say that those, that provides the service to Dunwoody Prep.
But there's no way that you can tell from those records whether or not, if in fact the defendant was moving, whether she was moving east to west, north to south, to or from Dunwoody Prep. Is that correct?
Right. She's in the footprint of that cell tower now, or that phone's in the footprint of that cell tower. Whether or not it's moving within that footprint, I don't know. It's just showing that it's using that footprint on the initial receiving or making that call.
And let me ask you one other thing, if I could, about, not just one other thing, but just one other thing about State's Exhibit number 92. Does this accurately reflect all of the phone calls or text messages that Andrea Sneiderman made during the period of time from the beginning to the end on here?
No.
Okay, just the sort of cherry-picked?
Objection to cherry pick.
Hand-picked.
Right. That was not my creation. It was the calls that were, for whatever reason, I think it's just mostly concentrating on the Hemi Newman, Andrea Sneiderman contact cell phone, between two cell phones.
But you yourself have actually reviewed, either in paper form or in digital form, the records from which these States 92 was created, correct?
That's absolutely, yes.
And there are quite a few other phone calls made to or from Andrea Sneiderman during this period of time, correct?
Yes, there's other calls, yes.
Quite a few.
I mean, I don't remember the number, but yes, there's other calls. I'll give you that.
Now, Mrs. Cross asked you whether or not there was anything in your findings about Longmont, California, Colorado, inconsistent with them sharing a room. And if it seemed to be a little bit of a pause, and you said, no. Is that correct? There is nothing inconsistent with what you found.
I mean, all I have is when the towers, when they decide to use the phones, what towers are utilized. If you tell me in the morning it's utilizing the same tower and sector about the same time, I mean, could they be in the same room? Absolutely. It could be consistent with that. Could you tell me that they're not in the same room but in the same sector? Absolutely.
Okay. It's also consistent with one of them eating breakfast at a Hardee's 1.5 miles away, and one of them being at a meeting at the GE facility, correct? If they're within the same sector.
If the GE facility is in that sector, yes.
And you're not changing your testimony earlier that you can't put them in the same building, much less the same room, at any given time.
That's correct.
Okay. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor, not from the state.
All right. Lawyers, may this witness be released and excused from his subpoena, or do you want him to remain under subpoena?
He may be excused for the state, Your Honor.
Mr. Petrie, any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Special Agent Fitzgerald, you may be excused.
All right, thank you.
Have a good day. Drive safely. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, this time the state will read a stipulation.
The lawyers may approach and
I just need to
No, you may.
check.
All right, Ms. Carpenter, we're back on the record.
Thank you, Your Honor. This stipulation I will identify as State's Exhibit number 94.
9-4, you may.
9-4.
And Mr. Petrie has had an opportunity to review it before you read it.
He has.
And Ms. Petrie, is there any objection?
The only objection, Your Honor, is I'd ask that it be typed up for us to sign later, but other than that, there's no objection to it in spirit.
It will be.
Well,
We will get together and type up the exact same wording, Your Honor.
no, I understand. But at this point in time, are you reading that into the record, or are you
That's
going to go by
the state's
spirit?
intention.
She was going to read what she has into the record.
I understand, I know what it's supposed to read, so I'll jump up if she says anything different, Your Honor.
All right.
I have no reason.
You may read it consistent with the spirit.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is a stipulation between the parties. Attorney Seth Kirschenbaum represented Andrea Sneiderman in 2011. At the state's request, Mr. Kirschenbaum turned over the defendant's BlackBerry phone in late February or early March 2011. He does not recall the exact date. Mr. Kirschenbaum did not knowingly delete or alter any information contained on the defendant's phone. And that, Your Honor, is the entirety of State's Exhibit number 94.
Mr. Petrie, is that consistent with your recollection?
That is correct, Your Honor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that stipulation will be considered as evidence that has been read on behalf of Ms. Cross with the consent of the defense. So it's viewed as evidence. Call your next witness, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. The State calls Investigator Mark Potter to the stand.
All right.
Turn around, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give this court should be the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, I do. Raise your hand. You be seated. Please state and spell your name for the record.
Mark Potter, M-A-R-K-P-O-T-T-E-R.
Investigator Potter, where are you currently employed?
I'm an investigator with the DeKalb County District Attorney's Office
How long have you been an investigator with the Dekalb County District Attorney's Office?
since 2007, I believe it was.
And generally, what are your duties, responsibilities? What do you do for the Dekalb County District Attorney's Office?
When a case gets sent up to the District Attorney's Office, I'm assigned, depending on what kind of case it is, I'm assigned to assist the attorneys in gathering evidence, generally preparing the case for trial.
Thank you. And at some time, were you tasked with responsibilities in the investigation to the murder of Rusty Sneiderman?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
All right. Specifically, I want to direct your attention to an item of property, a BlackBerry phone. Did you ever have any involvement in the handling of the evidence of a BlackBerry phone in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can you tell the jury what was that involvement?
On March 19th, I was asked,
Let me stop you. March 19th, what year?
2012, I was asked to take a BlackBerry phone that was seized in the Andrea Sneiderman, Hemi Newman case to Chad Fitzgerald and meet with him to transfer it to his custody so that it could be examined by the FBI.
Okay. And at the time, let me ask you, did you retrieve the item of evidence yourself?
No, I did not.
Okay. To your knowledge, where was it being kept?
In Investigator Chris Basibe's locked office, that's where most of the electronic evidence that comes into the office goes.
Okay, let me ask you that then. Let me ask you a broader question. Where and how is electronic evidence that comes into the possession of the District Attorney's Office, where is it kept and how is it stored?
It's kept in Investigator Basibe's office because generally it's fragile in nature, so it gets kept in Investigator Basibe's office, and his office is locked. No one has access other than the chief and the administration.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
I'm going to show you what has been marked as State's Exhibit number 95. Do you recognize what State's glasses if you need to? Can you recognize what State's Exhibit number 95 is?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And how is it that you recognize State's Exhibit number 95?
That is a DeKalb County District Attorney's Office property and evidence form.
And generally, what's a property and evidence form?
It's just written documentation of what the property is and who had it in their custody.
All right. Did you have, let me ask you, did you prepare that document yourself?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Are you familiar with the way it was prepared and who prepared it?
Yes.
Okay. How, if at all, did you document the fact that you took the BlackBerry? Let me ask you, whose BlackBerry telephone was it?
It was Andrea Sneiderman's.
And how was it that you documented the fact that you took Andrea Sneiderman's BlackBerry phone that was in possession of the District Attorney's Office and transported it to the FBI?
When Agent Fitzgerald accepted the phone, he signed the bottom of the form.
And State's Exhibit number 95, do you see Agent Fitzgerald's signature on it?
I believe I do.
Okay, and did you witness Agent Fitzgerald signing that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, Your Honor, at this time the State would introduce State's Exhibit number 95 into evidence.
Any objection, Mr.
No,
Petrie?
sir.
All right, submit without objection.
All right, thank you, Investigator Potter. I have no further questions,
All
Your
right,
Honor.
Mr. Petrie, you may examine if you wish.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Potter, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
When did you come into possession of the BlackBerry?
Personally,
You personally?
appears to be the 19th of March, 2012.
And where were you physically when you came in possession of it?
I was in my office
Okay.
at the district attorney's office.
Here at
Yes,
556 North McDonough.
yes, sir.
You took it from Mr. Pasibi?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you, of your own knowledge, know where it had been prior to your actually receiving it?
My own knowledge, no.
You testified earlier about what the procedure should be or what the procedure is, whether or not that was followed in this case. You are resting on what should have happened, but you don't have personal knowledge. Is that correct?
Not of this particular phone, but I
Of
know
this item.
where all the evidence, the electronic evidence was being kept. It was in a clearly marked box in Investigator Pasibe's office.
Okay. And was, when you say a clearly marked box?
Yes, it was a large, like, file box. It had Hemi Newman's iPad, his iPhone, stuff like that, electronic stuff. And it was there was something written on there about Newman Electronic Fragile or something. I don't remember the exact words.
Okay. Do you know of your own knowledge, Mr. Potter, how Mr. Pasibi, how that BlackBerry got into Mr. Pasibi's office?
Not from my own knowledge, no.
So is it safe to say that the first time that you saw the BlackBerry was when it was relinquished to you for transportation to the FBI?
Yes, sir.
Now, you are the lead investigator for this case as far as the district attorney's office is concerned, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you have been, and by this case also includes anything to do with the death of Rusty Sneiderman, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you have been involved with several different aspects of investigating the case, witness interviews, collecting evidence, executing or applying for search warrants, things of that nature, correct?
Yes, sir. I don't specifically recall applying for search warrants, but I may have.
Okay. But if Mr. Rosenthal or Mr. Pasibi or other investigators with the DA's office had in fact applied for search warrants, that would all be collected into a collection system, a file that you would have been the lead investigator for.
Objection, Your Honor. I think
What's
that's
the objection?
beyond the scope of the direct testimony. They may call this witness in the defense case in chief if they want. The testimony is far beyond what was elicited on direct.
Overruled. Go ahead and answer that question if you can.
So
I'm sorry, could
you
you
were the
repeat?
lead investigator, so you would have been in charge of making sure that search warrants, subpoenas, things of that nature were collected and placed into the appropriate file.
Yes, sir. Investigator Pasibe had his own file that was placed on a common computer drive. But so I didn't print any of it up, but he would keep copies in that drive.
Okay. But the prosecutors don't go individually to each of the investigators involved with the case and say, hey, give me what little paperwork you did, give me what little paperwork you did. You're responsible for putting it all together, correct?
Yes, if they ask for it, I know where to find it.
And that's similar to what your duties had been when you were a major felony detective for the Dekalb Police Department too, correct?
Yes, sir.
You may not do every aspect involved in the investigation, but ultimately you're the one who signs off on it and says, here's what we've got, pass it on to an to an assistant district attorney or the district attorney, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, were you aware in this case then, Mr. Potter, that you're putting together the evidence that there had been a subpoena for Andrea Sneiderman's phone records issued by the Dunwoody Police Department back on November the 18th, the day that Rusty was shot?
I believe I saw her phone records that were dated November 30th. I don't know if that was the date they actually subpoenaed them.
Okay. If there had been testimony, excuse me, from officers that in fact a subpoena was issued on the 18th, would you have any reason to disagree that that was accurate?
Objection, Your Honor. The witness testified he didn't do it. Anything else would be hearsay.
Well, response to the speaker.
I don't think, I'm asking him whether or not he would have, of his own knowledge, any reason to dispute that. I'm
I'm going to overrule the objection. You can answer that if you can.
I don't know the specific date that it was subpoenaed, sir.
Okay, but you do know that there was a return of her phone records by November the 30th?
I believe that was the date that
Okay.
it was, the subpoena was
And,
responded.
excuse me, I cut you off there.
No, but I believe that was the date.
Okay. Now, in the spring of 2011, a records gathering was involved in this case, included records from Longmont, Colorado, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Motel records.
Yes, sir.
Don't know if any restaurant records were gotten at that time, but certainly motel records, correct?
Yes, sir. I didn't do the majority of that part of it.
But you're aware that it was done.
Yes.
And during the spring also, records were gotten from Frontier Airlines.
Yes, sir.
The Greenville, South Carolina Embassy Suites records were obtained either through a search warrant or a subpoena or a voluntary submission by them at that time, correct, sir?
Yes, sir.
Is that right? Now, during the spring also of 2011 were search warrants and or court orders issued for the collection of Yahoo email records of the defendant.
Yes, sir. I would assume that's when they were done. I don't know specifically. That was Investigator Pasiva.
Okay. But again, other investigators would have done things that you sort of served as the clearinghouse for.
Yes, sir.
Now, did you involve yourself, sir, in the actual interviewing of any witnesses in this case? And by that, I mean lay witnesses.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us whether or not in the spring of 2011 you interviewed Donna Formato from Dunwoody Prep, one of the women who worked at Dunwoody Prep?
I believe so, May 31st.
Okay, you do. Okay, I didn't know if you remember that date, but you did in fact go to the location of Dunwoody Prep and you interviewed Donna Formato there, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you interviewed some other employees or principals there as well?
Jane Newman and Neely Height.
Okay. Now, did you make attempts, Mr. Potter, to yourself determine whether or not in any of the trips that Mrs. Sneiderman was on with Hemi Newman, whether or not they had had connecting rooms?
Did I personally?
Yes.
I didn't do any of the hotel work per se, but I'm familiar with what was said.
Okay. Did you, well, let me, D25? Okay.
So the next one should be D26.
May I approach you?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Potter, I'm just going to ask you to look at Defendant's Exhibit number 26 and take a moment, look at that. Don't tell us out loud what it is, but just look at it. When you've looked at it for long enough to refresh yourself as to what it is, if you can so do, just look up, please, sir. Do you recognize Defense Exhibit 26, sir?
Yes, sir, I do.
And can you tell us what it is?
It's the spreadsheet that was prepared and emailed back and forth between Andrea Sneiderman and Hemi Newman.
Okay.
Regarding a trip to England.
Okay.
With G.
Are there any handwritten notes on that document, sir?
Yes, sir, that's my handwriting.
Okay. And can you tell us whether or not Defense Exhibit number 26, sir, refreshes your memory as to whether or not you were attempting to determine whether or not they had had any connecting rooms on that trip?
Yes, sir, my handwriting. It does indicate that...
Objection, Your Honor.
What's the objection?
If the witness was attempting to read the document that hasn't been admitted into evidence into the record, then the state objects to that.
All right, I'm going to over the objection. You can refresh your, I think he said,
Okay,
you recognize his handwriting. You can refresh your recollection and testify.
I'm sorry. I did contact the Dalmoy Hilton in, I believe it's London, and apparently was told they...
Objection to hearsay, Your Honor.
Can you respond, Detective, to answer Mr. Petry's earlier question about giving a hearsay response at this point in time?
Maybe I should rephrase.
Oh, you can.
Did you receive any information regarding Mrs. Sneiderman having a connecting room to Hemi Newman on that trip? Did you receive any documentation from any source or find any witnesses indicating she had had connecting rooms with Hemi Newman?
I'm going to object to hearsay, Your Honor.
Well, no, I'm going to overhead that. You can answer. Did you understand the question?
Yes, sir.
If you answer that question, you don't have to give a hearsay response.
I did not receive any documentation that I'm aware of
Okay.
from anyone other than my handwritten notes. No.
Okay. And your handwritten notes were written by hand by you, correct?
Yes, sir.
And indicates that you did not.
Yes, sir.
You made the effort but did not find such information.
Yes, sir.
Now, did you file in a related matter an affidavit in Fulton County involving Hemi Newman's involvement at the house of Mrs. Sneiderman back on November the 10th?
What document are you referring to, sir?
Okay, Mark. I'm just going to assume this is going to be D27.
All right, D27, yes, sir.
One moment, please. Ron.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure I handed him the right document.
Is this still D27?
This is D28, Your Honor, since I'd already marked D27 and shown it
no
to the
problem.
state. I just,
No problem, we're on D28.
D28.
All right,
May I approach,
D28.
John?
You may, with D28.
Mr. Potter, I'm just going to show you D28. And don't tell us what this is, just tell us, first of all, look at it and tell us if you can identify that.
Yes, sir.
And does that refresh your memory about the incident on November the 10th, 2010 at the residence of Andrea Sneiderman and Rusty Sneiderman, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please, Mr. Potter, whether or not during the course of your investigation you were able to determine that it was in fact Hemi Newman who was at the residence on November the 10th?
I'm sorry, I'm going to object to that. That's calling for hearsay.
I'm going to sustain that objection, Mr. Beecham.
Okay. May I rephrase the question?
You may.
Without going into what a third-party witness may have told you, did your investigation reveal to you the
Hold on, let me finish. Go ahead, finish.
that in fact Hemi Newman had been the person lying outside the home of Rusty Sneiderman on November the 10th?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to that. It's calling for
Just
hearsay.
saying, don't answer that question.
Well, we'll move right along.
Oh, okay, that'll be fine.
Did you interview Melanie White in this case, sir?
Yes, sir, I did.
And was that interview recorded?
Yes, sir, it was.
Your Honor, at this time I'd ask permission to show prior inconsistent statements by Melanie White. We will have them queued up momentarily. This was a recorded statement. This was furnished to us in discovery from the state.
I'm afraid I don't know the portion of the interview that you're intending to play.
Mr. Williams is going to tell you in just a second.
Awesome. Is he going to tell me before it gets published in the jury?
The whole.
The whole thing. Well, Your Honor, it's not going to be just a portion. It's going to be the whole thing.
No, I'm sorry, which interview is this, Mr. Speaker?
Ms. Melanie White as interviewed by Mr. Potter, Your Honor.
That's all right. What is the length of this particular interview?
Yeah, I'm going to object to the entirety of the interview being played. And the state would have all sorts of objections to the part that is not directly inconsistent with the prior testimony.
Well, I would sustain that objection. I'm going to direct Mr. Speaker. I was asking the length first. I didn't know how long, but obviously you can. I know what you want to
Yes,
do.
sir.
You can do that, but you're going to have to go to that point if you don't mind.
Yes, sir. Let me check with
sure,
paralegal
you
Mr.
can
Williams,
confer.
make sure we can truncate this in, Your Honor.
Okay. Does truncate mean shorten?
Yes.
Okay. All right. In that case, you may truncate it.
Your Honor, may
Yes, sir.
Mr. Cross and I approach.
Sure. Come on up, lawyers. Ms. Cross, Mr. Petrie. All lawyers. A brief stretch break. At this point, it will be in the jury room. And again, in advance, thank you for your patience. Thank you for your understanding. Don't look back at the clock, but I want to thank you for your patience. Thank you for your understanding. Follow the instructions, Deputy Garrett. It'll be 10 minutes. All right.
And back again, 11 Alive's continuing coverage of the trial of Andrea Sneiderman. I'm Jeff Hellinger.